Alright, shalom everyone, it's Yalak here again, and this is June 25th, 2017, and I've got another lesson with the whole Garden of Eden stuff. I was more thinking about Eve. I've talked so much about Adam, but the thoughts just ran into some other stuff here, and I want to share some of this here because it just seems really interesting the way that they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. I'm going to start from Genesis chapter 3, and my thoughts ran into some other things, so I'm not going to fully talk about Eve anymore in this lesson, but I'll still title it by whatever I was thinking about her at first, so I'll call this Eve, Mother of all living. So from Genesis chapter 3, I'll read about 3 or 4 verses, beginning at verse 20. Prior to this, they were being given some judgments for falling into the temptation. So verse 20 it reads, "And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. Unto Adam also and to his wife did the Creator make coats of skins and clothe them. And the Most High and the Creator said, Behold, the man is become as one of us to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. Therefore the Creator sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life." So we know, of course, the serpent came in and tempted Eve. It is strange that Adam wasn't around and the woman gave in, but by the time the judgment was coming, the expression in verse 24 that closes out this chapter says he drove out the man. So the chapter doesn't say the serpent tempted the man. It clearly lets us know he was talking to Eve. So it seems that the tempter tempted Eve, and because he tempted Eve, then he was called a tempter. But then Eve tempted Adam, and we don't call her a tempter. But it seems to me there were two tempters in this part of the story. She did the same thing the serpent did, but she doesn't get the name or the title of a tempter. He just tempted her with words, but she took it a step farther and put some physicality to it by eating it and tempting the man with the physicality of the whole thing, with the fruit. I was thinking yesterday that feelings in large part is a key to walking through life the way you want to walk through life, and that the Creator wants us to focus on feelings as well. He must, because you can hear a lot of things, and the way your mind works, you will give it some interest and gravitate to it, or you will just right away shut it down because of what's in your mind. If there is no proclivity toward what you're hearing, toward the things that you're hearing, you can dismiss it fairly quickly. But if you've got some interest or proclivity toward what you're hearing, you will entertain it further. So Eve must have been thinking about the fruit, and so there was some proclivity there because she entertained the serpent in the conversation, trying to teach a godless or a Torah-less creature or tempter. And that's where he hooked her, because it's obvious he already knew all these things when you consider the smoothness with which he came. He already knew the whole deal, what the Creator said. So for her to stand there and try to teach him what the Creator said, he was just leading her by questioning. And by so, he weakened her, or he appealed to her proclivity. Her desire was acted on by longer conversation. So it would have been better if she had just walked away. It seems that she wasn't as strong with her resisting the desire in the way I look at it. And it seems the whole setting with the serpent and her was around the fruit. But Adam, if she was very far removed from it and probably was doing something else, maybe even if he was talking to her, trying to get her to deal with that particular tree, by the time she had to journey and travel to it, she might have come to her senses. No. If it was a long journey, sun hot and everything, and she's sweating or whatever, it's like, no, she would have time to rethink in her mind, or the fatigue of journeying, or whatever, however you can think of it. She would just be like, in there, no way, and turn back. But she must have been close by, I think, so that she could go reach for the fruit before her own mind was able to break the influence of the temptation. But it seems that Adam wasn't so preoccupied, although he would have thought of it as well, because if she's desiring it so strongly, she's going to tell the man about the tree. Wouldn't it be nice to taste that? Like, I wonder what it's like. I wonder what it will do to us or for us. But Adam didn't seem as, occupied with it. Notice he could be seemingly away from it, away doing his own thing, because he wasn't anywhere in the conversation. So he wasn't quite drawn to it in the same manner as she was. But while the serpent tempted her with words, she used physicality to get to him, because Adam had shown strength in words already. Because as we're going to see, he named her the mother of all living. He was already in communication with the Creator before she even came along. And by wording, he named all the creatures. So Adam had a respect for the power of words and for following instructions. He followed the Creator's instructions and was living fine, and he didn't fall prior to her. He also followed the Creator's Torah or instructions by naming the creatures and whatever else he was doing in the garden. So Adam didn't have a problem initially being Torah-minded. So the serpent, even though Adam taught Eve, because Eve wouldn't have known this stuff to repeat it to the serpent if Adam didn't teach her. But because the serpent came to question her. So he's questioning a knowledge that she has. He's questioning a teaching that she has. So if he got to her by using words, he knew her weakness was something to do with wording. She wasn't as strong with the word. Somehow it wasn't as strong in her mind. And it's funny that just like today, and even more so in the Bible, men were mainly the ones handling the Torah. Men were mainly the ones that were dealing with the teachings. It's like men have this kind of strength with the word, and we see that right away with Adam. Like I said, he was naming the creatures, and by naming the creatures, he was expressing the power that was in creation, where the Creator spoke and said, "Let there be." So she can't come at him in only the same way the serpent did, by just talking, because if you're going to deal with talking, that's the man's strength, with words. So what she did was she appealed to his feelings. And so she gave to him of the fruit, and he did eat. Notice there was no arguments there. He didn't hit back and so on. She bypassed strong, heavy wording to him. Now, did she say a little bit and give him? And did he know but the desire, let him eat? But the desire, let him eat? Or did she give to him in a way where he was not aware? Did she cut it up and peel it so he didn't know what it was, that it was that particular fruit? Or did she give it to him in a way where he knew and then he ate? Because there was no argument, he just ate. The Creator had given him Torah instruction, these are the kind of food you should eat. So it could have been presented in a way where it was set to look like other food that he was already eating, so he wasn't, but maybe he knew. In any case, he ate the fruit, and then the whole story changes. Now it goes on to say that the Creator was saying, let's try to get them out here. Let's deal with the situation, because they've become like one of us. We don't want this thing to go any further. And he sent the man forth. Here again now, he drove out the man in verse 24, and in verse 23, he sent the man, because it says he sent him forth. So the whole responsibility of the thing, of how things turned out, rests on Adam, not on Eve. The man seemed to have been fine prior to the woman. And it's like the Most High had invested something in Adam, and he was dealing with the man. Now he drove out the man, and he put at the Garden of Eden cherubims with a flaming sword. I wondered some time ago if this might have been sword, and it clearly seems to be, because it says that. But I was thinking at one moment, how come nobody can find Eden? Because even Sumer, that came not too long after, the Sumerians, they say, described Eden as some kind of a judgment hall, a judgment place, or a courthouse. But in the Hebrew text here, it is saying that Eden was a garden, a place where people were living. And in a courthouse, you don't actually live there, you just try cases. So right away there we see, in the early part of the world, in the morning of existence, there are already different thoughts or records about what Eden was, or how we started. And it's little wonder that we're wondering how the whole thing really started. He drove out the man, and there were cherubim there. They had this flaming sword. And I wondered if the reason why we search and can't find Eden, although many people say they found it, was because it was burnt down. Because a flaming sword, could that have been like a fire stick? Certainly if it was burnt down, then you can't find it, because it was just burnt down. and if it was mainly identifiable because of the kind of trees that there were and because of a special tree or two that was there, like in the midst of the garden, then if you're burning it down, the trees would be the most identifiable mark of the garden. Tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life would be the most identifiable. So if you burn them down with some fire sticks that you came with as cherubim, it would be difficult because all the other trees in there might just be trees of elsewhere. But if you've burnt down, then the two special trees are not probably able to be found. It's all gone. And we know in scripture, fire is used in destruction sometimes. The Most High rained down fire, or people set fire to buildings in wars, or burn down whole cities and so on. So fire is used in destruction. But it might not have been a stick. Let's see what it says. And the flaming sword. So now when they have this flaming sword here, the Hebrew word for sword, kereb, it said it's a sword, a knife, a tool for cutting stone. So it's not just a tool for cutting, but for cutting stone. So this was very sharp. This weapon that the cherubs brought made them ready for war. Because I don't think they would have been cutting stone. Man would learn to do that later on. But very, very sharp weapons. And it's funny as well that it's not just that it's very sharp, but it has fire on it as well. Like if you have such a sharp weapon when you're dealing with fighting, and what are angels doing with fighting tools or weapons in a time when there was 100% peace and purity and perfection on the earth? Because prior to this there was no sin, we are told. But I have questioned that in my videos when I pointed out that they said Jericho and other places were there a couple thousand years before Adam. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I choose at this point to believe it until I can find other things that show that Jericho was not there before Adam, before the Garden of Eden. And we know Jericho was always, at different points at least, dealing with war and fighting. And at Jericho, they had towers there at different times. And towers were used as sentries or military constructs in a city. So watchmen could be up high looking out. So they're dealing with warfare and guarding and so on. So if cherubs came with weapons of war, why was that necessary? One, in a world that was perfect where sin had not yet happened, and it appeared that if they came with it, they already had it. And it was so fine-tuned that it was so sharp that it could cut stone, not just simply cutting flesh, but to cut stone. Also, why do they need to make it more scary by putting fire on it? The next thing is, how do you get fire to stay on metal? But what's more interesting than all of that is that Adam and Eve were never ones to fight. Nothing in the story showed that they were vicious or violent. In fact, the woman was even kind of sort of passive with the serpent. She wasn't freaking out. She didn't hit out against him and so on. It was just all talking. It was just a conversation. So she wasn't violent. The man Adam wasn't violent. Nothing in the story shows that they were violent, vicious. They were fighting people. The world was perfect prior to this part of the story. And you are an angel or a cherub. You are going to put out some perfect people who are not known for violence. And you come with such show of force that you have to, one, bring a weapon to put out perfect people who had all their lives kept the commandments. So they were not wicked people prior to this. They were not in general They were not in general wicked people, and they weren't fighting and so on. They had not known war, and they weren't vicious toward each other, and you come with weapons of war just to put them out, and you do something extra to the weapon by making sure fire is on it. Like, will that scare them any more than the sharpness of it or than the presence of the weapon itself? And so two people who aren't going to do anything to you, especially not be able to do something to a cherub, comes with weapons to drive out these two people who, if we're dealing with the morning of existence, because the world was just starting as far as people are concerned with living on the earth, they're kind of like babies. So can you imagine coming with swords that are very sharp that can cut stone and fire on them to drive out two little babies and bring out two little babies out of the garden? It seems like an overshow of force and power. Like, was it necessary? So the pronouncement of judgment upon these people and so on, the Most High is giving all this stuff to them. And notice what Adam does. Even though he fell as well, he was still leaving the garden with power, because the Bible says that the Creator sent him. And a lot of times when the Creator sends someone, you got to still keep your eye on the person. He sent the man. As if he's not trying to kill the man, he's actually sending him still with some power. So he's going to, that sending is still a blessing, because even though he's being cursed, he's going out with a blessing. I am sent by the Creator. I'm not going to be necessarily destroyed out here right away because I was sent. And so he was sent with the power to live, sent still with the power or the ability to survive. And so he did. As I've wondered in recent videos, people like at Sumer, that was not very long after, and Noah and them, nobody tried to find this Garden of Eden. Why was no one interested in finding this location if Eden, the Garden of Eden, was a real place? No one expresses as if the Garden of Eden was not a real place, but just some kind of a fancy way to tell spiritual things and to give us some idea of how we all started, but still hide the truth. And here's truth being hidden. It's in the word cherubim. So verse 24 again, he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. As if the presence of cherubims will not stop them from coming back, but to keep the way of the tree of life, like they need some weapons to stop these people from getting back. Now when you deal with to keep the way, that word way from the Hebrew is direct, and it's dealing with like the entrance, the finding of the place, the journey, the traveling, the road, the distance, it says, the direction. It also has to do with moral character, but it seems that they would not find the way back. Here's why I'm beginning to wonder. I'm not saying it is, but it's my newer thoughts. I'm beginning to wonder, because after my few videos on the Garden of Eden and Adam and writing and so on, I'm starting to now wonder if Eden itself was not a real place, because no one is trying to point out in their commentaries why no one, even at Sumer that was not so long after, or Noah, nobody is interested in this Garden of Eden except modern people. As godless as we have become on this earth, including the Israelites who fell, although we're returning now, thank the Most High. None of us back then, no people back then seemed heavily interested in finding the Garden of Eden like people are today. These people who were so closely located in time to the time when they left the garden, like at Sumer and so on, were interested in finding this place. You know what's kind of strange to me? If it was a real place? Because you got people today like the Druids, well, these modern Druids, modern people who say that they're connected to the Druids or they're into the worship of the Druids from old times, and witches and other such people in these occult things. They will go like to the Stonehenge or to any other historical site that was known to have some kind of religious or pagan significance because they feel they want to do some service or seance there or something like that, because they say these locations are charged with spiritual energy. And the Sumerians, who were dealing with spiritual energy from the so-called Anunnaki and visitors from outer space and from other planets and so on, these Sumerians had no interest, and the worshippers of Baal, because remember Baal worship was a massive and mighty religion in ancient times, more so than we realize. The more I study, I'm realizing that this Baal worship was far bigger than I thought, even much bigger than I thought last year. This is a religion and a god that actually dominated the ancient world. Dominated. Remember now, in Genesis 6, Noah's coming, building the ark and so on, and flood is coming. Because the earth had gotten so bad, because they had, they had gone so far into evil that the Creator said, I'm going to destroy everything. So this Baal worship had really taken over. And they tried it again with the Tower of Babel. So all these people in this strong Baal worship and Shiva worship and the swastika and so on, because these are the things that were there from these times. And none of these people want to find the Garden of Eden if it was a real place. You're telling me Adam's children didn't know after Adam, that Adam and, Adam and his children and so on didn't tell anybody, so that the people would walk into the Sumerian territories and Sumerian kingdoms and know where this place is? The people in Akkad and and so on, who they were into a lot of strange gods, and they didn't want to go to a spiritually charged place in Eden where these two special trees were and try to do something there to get some spiritual energy at that location in the Garden of Eden, if Eden was a real place and if these trees were real trees. Tell me why. So I've already told you that the serpent was a person, according to what I believe. A person. If I am living in 2017 and just 50 years before or 100 years before I was born, Adam got kicked out of the garden in Toronto, because I'm in London, Ontario, and he got kicked out of the garden, you don't think I'm going to drive down to Toronto and try to find those trees, the location of those trees? Adam got kicked out of the Garden of Toronto, where the Most High walked himself and pronounced judgments on them and so on. And I'm not going to go to Toronto, especially seeing I used to live there, and go find this place. So Eden does not seem to be a physical and real place. to me. This just seems to me like a story. You know from the videos that I did not rush to saying this. And it's not like I thought it at first and was just making those videos for just to lead up. No, I thought Eden was a real place. And I continued to look into it. But now it doesn't seem to me to be a real place, as in a special garden like that. Because nothing will stop these power hungry people from doing that. Look how wicked they were. They were into all kinds of evil till the Most High destroyed the whole earth in a flood and only 8 people were saved. And it seems that not all those 8 people were all that righteous like Abraham, because it's pointing out Abraham was found righteous. But it looks like the rest of them are getting saved just because they're a part of his house. So it's like they're under his covering, so that's how they ended up getting rescued or saved. I mean, Noah, excuse me. Noah, in the flood. So the Sumerians have their own story, and other people have their own stories about this Eden stuff, how life started. Now look here. If the cherubim was placed there with sword, flaming, turning everywhere, and so on, to keep the way, or to keep the journey and the distance and so on to the way of the tree of life, it more seems like instead of being a real place, these cherubim were placed there to keep them from making their way back to the tree of life, or back to the Torah of life, or back to the right way of life, or back to the right way of living. Which then means Eden was not a real place, Garden of Eden with these trees, but it was Torah instructions, which is why today we don't even know Torah properly. We're still trying to find out the Torah of life, the right way to live. Because the way has been hidden from us by what? Weapons of war, flaming swords. Which is a way to say this is a spiritual fight. I'm going to look into it some more, but so far what I've found of cherubim, as it says here, cherubims on a flaming sword, seem to be linked back to some ancient Assyrian mythological creatures. You'll find that quickly when you start searching. So are these angels sent from God? Or is someone here writing this story to tell us some things that they wanted to tell us, which are making sure that as long as we think in the regular way that we've been taught, that we never find the truth, or we never find the way to the tree of life, or we never find the proper instructions of Torah. Because it is your mind that keeps you away from the Torah. So as long as your mind is filled with distracting information, you never find the way back, and by so doing, the way to the tree of life is kept, or the journey to it, so that you cannot journey back to the tree of life or journey back to Torah. And notice even the children of Israel had trouble finding their way back properly, because every time they tried to make their way back in 5 minutes, they were back into transgressions again, until the Most High eventually just kicked us all out of the land, and here we are as well today, still in captivity, but still trying to find our way back to the Most High's Torah. So could these two trees, tree of knowledge of good and evil and tree of life, with a duality there, or two trees, just be a way to tell us there should be balance in life? Their desire and their feelings had them fall into transgression by taking the fruit. And with the woman who fell first, arguing with the tempter, and she became a tempter as well to the man, but somehow the serpent is demonized for tempting, but when she tempted the man, she is not demonized as a tempter. You might curse Eve and whatever and say, oh, she took down whatever, but she's not treated as a tempter the same way he is. But with the presence of word, because she was arguing with the serpent and so on, and the two trees, is that just a way to show two trees, meaning that we should have balance with the Torah and our feelings? Because as she discussed her feelings, then and then Adam came and just ate quickly, she doesn't have any proper balance with keeping truth where it needs to be and keeping temptation and her feelings where it needs to be. So she ate. Adam, he didn't deal with the word the way she tried to do because he didn't mention it to her. He just ate. So these two trees might be a way to communicate to us that we need to have some balance as we go through life in order to keep the instructions of the Creator. She didn't have any balance, and so she was tempted in the area of her weakness. She was weaker with the word, with standing up for the word, than Adam was, because he clearly showed to have some respect for the word prior to this, to the point where he even taught her. So she was tempted in the area of her weakness. She was weaker with the word because he could overcome her just by talking. Because even though she tried to resist, he just had to keep the conversation going, and eventually she would give in. She wasn't as strong because she lost a battle of words. And that's why I've said at other times that this world and this warfare and so on is really just a battle of words. This is a world of words. You win with word, you don't even have to fight a people. Because once you can teach them who they are and teach them not to resist and teach them that it's okay to eat these GMO foods and teach them not to worship the Creator and so on, you win. You might not tell them don't worship the Creator, but you can teach them that something else is what they should gravitate towards, and so they'll keep these pagan lifestyles because they've been taught and cultured that, and you win just by word, and you don't have to take out swords to kill them. So her area of weakness, she was weaker with the word, it seems, and he dominated, and she took off the fruit. Adam's area where he didn't have balance now was his feelings or his desire. Because obviously he desired it as well, so he ate it quickly. And he didn't balance his operation in the whole scenario by using the word which would have helped him through the situation. See, maybe word wasn't her strong point, but word was his strong point. So the temptation came to her in the area of her weakness. She was weaker with word. But the temptation, she brought it to him in the area of his weakness, which was desire. And he just took it and he ate it. Either he had a desire for the fruit or he just had a desire to please her or something like that. But she didn't come at him in the area of his strength. Because if she tried to give some Torah conversation to argue with him and to prove based on the word that the Creator gave that this should be eaten, he would have knocked that down. So she didn't come to him based on his strength. She came based on his weakness. So the two trees are showing that we should have some balance in life, to know that the creation you're given, while it can lead you astray if you don't handle it properly, you should balance all of that and your desires in life and so on with the knowledge of the Torah, instructions from the Most High. Balance it all with the Torah and know that it is the right and good and better thing to keep the Torah instructions, and life itself will work out, because the lack of balance will tip the scale, so to speak. So they're bouncing between these two trees in the story, bouncing between the knowledge of the Torah, which speaks of good and speaks of evil, and the desire to have life that comes from that same Torah. No balance with the word lets you lose both of those trees. You lose the whole garden, out of which every other goodness will grow into your life. Now I'm going to talk about cherubim some more, but look here at what this commentary is saying now. Interpreters 1 volume commentary. I've read from it a number of times before. It says here from Genesis 3:20 to 24, nevertheless, paradoxically, man affirms life in the naming of his wife. And so he names her Eve, the mother of all living. So when he's getting a curse, you see, just showing again how he had lived based on the word prior, how he had lived based on the word prior to all this happening, he still has word coming out of his mouth. So he's like the Creator in that sense. So when the Creator is cursing them, he blesses his wife because he's smart. He has the Torah still, and he's smart. He's wise from it. So he knows, if I'm going to be sent out and the woman already gave in to enticement and I fell down because of it, how much more when we're in a weaker state outside of this garden, we'll be easier to fall. Things will get even harder. I need to bring my woman back. I need to restore her in her mind. I need to strengthen her again. Because if he goes out there with a woman who has all this guilt riding on her and she feels so bad, now she feels weaker than man, weaker than him, he's going to have hell. Because when something is bothering a woman, there is no peace. No peace. And the man will lose his strength as well. So he needs to strengthen her, because if she goes out there with all kinds of guilt, oh, it's my fault, it's all my fault, and so on, what is he going to do? When a woman is troubled, it is very difficult to comfort that woman. Very. When a woman is really troubled over something, even if he didn't do anything, may the Most High help you. So how can she be a helpmeet if he does not restore her with the word? So he brings her back up, he builds her back up, he strengthens her, he puts the strength in her. And so he's going to have strength himself if he strengthens her again. So Adam is always relying on the word. And he had lived by the word prior to all of this. So he still got the word in him. So he draws on his strength now, which is the word, and he pumps life back into her with the Torah, and says unto the woman, your name is Eve, the mother of all living. Notice he doesn't just bring her back to the level of normal, but he uses Torah to build her back up. That's why I said the man was sent by the Creator. When he was sent out, he was sent in a powerful manner, because he's going out, you think, with a curse, but he's going out with a blessing as well, the blessing of the Torah. He was sent. Anything he meets out there, the Creator sent me. I was sent. And so he pumps her up above normal, above where she was. Now that is restoration. Like the Most High said, he's going to restore Israel, and when he blesses us and whatever, deserts are going to come, and like the Garden of Eden, even better. It's going to be better when we're back in the land and so on, better than it was even before. It's going to be great. Even our numbers are going to increase again. So he increases all of what she was by crediting her with more than and speaking life into her. He says, you are the mother of all living, even though she herself wasn't even alive before other stuff was living. Trees were there. If you click and look at the words and so on, mother of all living, it's dealing with the living trees and plants and so on, and their beasts. But he credits her and says, you are the mother of all living. He's speaking abundant life into her. And see, sometimes we get so hateful toward each other, especially when we're even corrected. You can't speak to people today and correct them of anything. And they're just going through a time of correction with the Creator. But the man has the balance and the wisdom to still speak life. Most of us, if we're getting cursed over something, we're not going to bless the next person beside us. We're going to curse living daylights. And again, you look at all these fake teachers and false teachers in some of these Israelite camps that are teaching garbage. And I was listening to them at first a couple years ago when I just started, a little over 3 years ago, and I started to just go stalemate, because I'm like, these people are just speaking the same thing over and over. You're an Israelite, you're black, you're an Israelite, you're black, slave ship, you're an Israelite, you're black. You're not getting much more. Of course, they do talk a little bit more, yeah, but what I mean, you know what I mean, right? Like, you're not growing past a certain level. Because they're stuck. Then do they really have Torah in their heart? They got it in their head, but not in their heart. But Adam never lost his stuff in his heart, so he can not just simply bring her back to the level, but he can pump her up higher. He says, you are the mother of all living. And he credits her with something very powerful. Now, when he gets out, he's going to have a helpmeet. Notice the woman was restored in her mind, because when she got the next son, now, she says, the Creator has given me a man. So she's still calling on the Most High. She didn't lose her mind because Adam spoke to her mind. Listen, it's already gone bad. Don't sweat it. You're the mother of all living. Today, like hell, I'm kicking you out of this house. You done messed up my whole thing. You got me kicked out the garden. I'm losing the house. I'm losing the food. I'm losing everything. I'm losing the car. It's like that relationship is over. Adam, no. Adam's like, you the mother of all things. You restore things. You keep life going. If we could only learn some lessons from that. See, that's the wisdom of Torah right there. Sometimes we hold on to all kinds of bitterness and so on. No wonder, marriages fail, friendships fail, camps are failing and splitting off and so on, because we don't have the wisdom of Torah even in these camps. And so instead of growing stronger because someone's acting up in your camp, we don't have the wisdom of Torah to restore and to sustain things and to keep that person going and to build an empire of a camp. Instead, we split off and we break up and then we start cursing the next one because our wisdom is gone. And when someone breaks off of a camp and they try to start another camp, instead of that one saying, okay, it's done gone bad already, may the Most High bless that person and help them to grow even though they're not with me or under me anymore, and let them grow because they're still working for Israel and for the Most High to wake up our people. Instead, we curse that one and hope and wish that they never grow in the new camp that they're starting off. That is lifelessness and death. Why can't your brother grow just because he is left off of you? If he wasn't comfortable there, if he wasn't growing there, he's not going to grow any further, because bitterness and anger and upset will be in his heart. He won't be focused in doing the things of the Creator, the God of Israel. So he's going to get into a stalemate filled with frustration and so on. It's better if this or that brother just goes, starts his own camp, and be free to do it right, according to how he feels the Most High is leading him. That is truth and growth and wisdom. And that shows love for each other when we treat it like that. So he says here now, he has indeed become like a god, because he, in the naming of his wife, he's become like a god himself. He's become like the Creator, because the word of life is still coming out of him. The Creator said, let there be, and that's what he basically said to Eve. Let her be the mother of all living. Let her continue to give life, even though we're facing this death of coming out of the garden. So he's become like a god, refusing to think of himself as just a mere regular creature, like the beasts of the field or so. The author thinks of God's gift of clothing as a special act of grace. Cherubim are known from ancient Near Eastern lore as mythological winged animals, usually with human faces. And see 1 Kings 6, 23 to 28. 1 Kings 6, 23 to 28. Let's see what that says here. So I'll talk now about this cherubim and then close it off. 1 Kings chapter 6, 23 to 28. And within the oracle he made two cherubims. Click on that cherubim again. Okay, cherub, the same word, angelic being, as guardians of Eden, as flanking God's throne, as an image from hovering over the Ark of the Covenant, as the chariot of Jehovah. 5 cubits and so on. Okay, I don't want the rest of this stuff, but basically they put the cherub here. Okay, so I don't want to read it. You go and read the rest of it. The height of one cherub was 10 cubits and so on. and whatever, wings touching each other and so on. Okay, so now let's run back to Genesis chapter 3. So the cherubims are there. Now, if you look at this, now, so many stuff I've read over the years, even when I was in Christianity, saying that these cherubs are like mythological creatures. So I noticed they don't use the regular word malak to call them angels. But when I searched on it, a few months ago, it's telling me that these were like ancient Assyrian mythological creatures. So they were pagan symbols of worship. They were idols used to worship the gods that they were worshiping. So in this setting now, one would quickly ask themselves, first of all, the way to the tree of life is kept. So the way or the knowledge of how things started is kept from us. We might know some of it because the Creator spoke and so on or whatever. Let there be, let there be. But it's like we don't know everything because there's a lot of mystery surrounding this Garden of Eden. So the way of knowledge is kept. The full truth is kept away from us. Because the flaming sword, in other words, the war weapon or weapon, there's spiritual warfare going on, turning every way with the fire to burn you. Fire keeps you away. Fire, house on fire, you're told not to go in there. Oh, I need to go grab my purse. Well, don't go in there. You just have to get some new ID printed again because it's on fire. So it is keeping you away, right? So these cherubim shows up when there is sword or spiritual warfare going on. And notice again, as I said before, that they come with sword, weapons of war, to put a two part to this innocent people who never did anything to anyone, weren't fighting wars, they weren't violent people. And that's what a lie does and deception does, and evil. It comes with an onslaught. Just like even when they're taking us over in captivity and they're putting us on ships and so on. But apparently they found, from what I've been looking to more and more lately, that they found us here because if Israel was all over, we were mixed up with the Hamites. So when they came to America, they were finding us here with Hamites. Right? So Israelites were here all over North America, all over the earth. And then they start bouncing us around on ships and so on, and killing us off. So they came with an onslaught. It's the same kind of stuff here, that an onslaught against truth to stop you from knowing the Creator more fully is brought by this cherubim who came with a weapon of lies. Just like the serpent had set up the situation already, and then the cherubims with the lies and their weapons came. These are just my thoughts as well. You don't have to agree. Like, look it up yourself and see what you come up with. It's like the serpent came first to take down, and then the cherubim damaged the whole tree of life. You can't get back to it now. It's like the missionaries and the conquistadors and so on. The missionaries coming first to deceive us that they're coming with their Bibles and the love of Jesus to get you saved and so on. And then the weapons of war, the swords, came in afterwards and take us into captivity and kill us off and so on. And now they rule and put us into slavery. Well, the serpent came with word first, discussion, trying to teach you something. After it takes you down, then the sword comes in with the cherubim, and you lost the way forever. You lost your land forever. And so to keep the way of the tree of life. Now, look at the cherubim again. It's telling you an angelic being, as Gardens of Eden and so on, and apparently some beings that have to deal with the Creator. But the Assyrians had these mythological creatures that it seems, and I'll just use the word seems, that the Hebrews didn't have prior to this. It seems like something is being entered into the text. So were these texts of the Hebrews somehow altered in Babylon or someplace else, or influenced someplace? Because I've told already, if Hebrew is a Canaanite tongue, and we've been given the text in Phoenician Hebrew, Paleo Hebrew, all that stuff, then did somehow a Canaanitish kind of people give us the text that we have today, even when we say we're reading from a Hebrew Bible? Why are they going to display the Dead Scrolls, Dead Sea Scrolls, and so on in museums and give you the true, like we used to say, unadulterated word of God, the original scrolls from the Hebrews that they found, and make it available to the whole world so that truth in its entirety will be flourishing on the earth in a museum where anybody can just go and look at it? When a cherubim was keeping a Near Eastern mythological creature from ancient Assyria who was fighting against the children of the Most High, when this cherubim mythological creature is keeping the way of the tree of life, or keeping man away from truth. But they're going to give you that truth in some ancient Paleo-Hebrew scrolls that tells the truth of all that the scrolls said? Or are those scrolls just simply a copy of other copies, but don't have the full truth in them, which means that the real word, the real scrolls, the original scrolls with all of the truth, has not yet been made available to the public, or not yet been found? Because what is Assyrian mythological creatures, Near Eastern mythological folklore creatures from pagan worship doing guarding the garden of the Creator? And don't you find it now that liars today are guarding the truth of Israel, of the Israelites, of the Israelite kingdom, and so on, and somebody is acting like they're us? They're guarding the way to the truth and using a lying sword to prevent everyone from finding truth. But after he tells us what cherub means, it's an angelic being and so on, hovering over the ark and so on, it's easy to find information that this cherub was ancient Assyrian mythological creature, so it had nothing to do with the Hebrews apparently, and was just in pagan worship. But the Strong's here is telling us all this stuff about the cherub, but doesn't want to mention it was some Assyrian mythological pagan creature. So you grew up thinking it was an angel of God that the Israelites were dealing with, this cherub. But it turns out to be something else when you read history. But even though he tries to tell you it's an angelic being, Gardens of Eden, as if they were sent from God and so on, guarding Eden, why would God, the God of Israel, want that, or the Creator want Eden to be guarding the way of the truth of life? Because man fell, you think? Well, picture this. If man fell, wouldn't it more be the case that the truth should be more available, because without the truth man cannot return? So whoever is guarding the truth, are they the culprit? So if they're the culprit, then would this cherub be not of God? Because if we're going to captivity and the Most High is telling us to keep His laws still, and you should still keep the Sabbath and so on, things like that, you should still be righteous and set apart wherever you go. Because that's the reason why you're being punished, because you're not set apart. So the way in order to restore yourself is to become set apart again, even while you're in captivity, and search for me again, even while you're in captivity. How can you search for truth and find it, even when you're in captivity, and return unto me if truth is not available? So then the Creator would not guard truth and make truth inaccessible to you in captivity if He expects you to, in captivity, turn to Him, because you have searched and found Him in captivity, which means you found truth in captivity. So truth is not being guarded and blocked by the Creator in captivity. This cherubim is hiding something, because this cherubim is not of the Creator. Hello. So after he tries to tell us all kinds of things from this Paleo-Hebrew scrolls, when we read it in the Hebrew, this funny Hebrew that I've been searching, that tells you the cherub means an angelic being but won't tell you anything about Assyria and so on. He tries to tell you all kinds of nice things about it's an angel of God, it's hovering over the ark and so on and so forth, and it's the chariot of Jehovah, rightfully Jehovah, because Jehovah, like, what's Jehovah? Really, what's that word Jehovah for? I might touch on that quickly before I close out. Maybe. But after he goes through all this nice description of a cherub to make you think it's of the Creator, sending it to guard the way to the tree of life when man needs to have the way to the tree of life so he can return, then he goes on at the very end and of the description and he said, of this word cherub is of uncertain derivation. Well, some other people seem to be certain that it was from Assyrian pagan worship, the cherub. Some of the people seem to be sure. So how come he has the Paleo-Hebrew going off and says it's of uncertain derivation? A cherub or imaginary figure. So if it's an imaginary figure, it is not a real figure. It's just something in the mind, like my demons stuff that I posted up recently. It's imaginary. So then the Hebrews are making an ark for the Most High to represent the presence of the Most High and putting imaginary figures on the ark that are figures that are not representations of real creatures. So if it's imaginary, no one, even the Israelite, no one, not even Solomon, no one, not anyone has even, who they say his name is, I think Jedediah, or something like that, has ever seen a cherub, because they are not real, they are imaginary creatures. And you're putting imaginary creatures with wings, imaginary wings that you've never seen before, on the ark or presence of the Most High. It seems to me like someone is putting imaginary things along with, associating imaginary things along with the presence of the Most High. That is mixing. Babylonian, mixing by confusion. So they're confusing imaginary things with the real presence of the Most High. So is the Ark of the Covenant not as elaborate as they tell us, but still powerful, of course. But they're just adding extra stuff. Because look at all these stories going around now of Solomon's star or David's star and all this kind of stuff and the different things in the Bible. Obviously, someone has been adding different things to the knowledge of the past and to the scrolls to add onto the truth so that people will become confused and so that they can create their own religion, pagan religion and so on, by using the word of the Most High. So now, chariot of Jehovah. So they're guarding the way to the tree of life. Let's run over now to, where is it now? Okay, I'll skip that part. I was going to talk about the name Jehovah, but okay, I'll just leave that for another time.